This past weekend, Washington, D.C. was taken over by a massive stage. The crowd, huge. The sound, deafening. And the vibes, unmistakably alive. And no, I am not talking about a certain underwhelming birthday celebration that tried to pass itself off as a patriotic parade for the army. I'm talking about the resurgence of Warped Tour. A festival that for a lot of us growing up was way more than just a lineup. It was a lifeline. For kids growing up queer in small towns, in conservative homes, just outside the lines, punk, pop punk, and emo weren't just music scenes. They were survival strategies. It was only one day a year. But that one day a year, I felt the pressures to play along with everybody else melt away. Warped Tour was my one-day summer camp, where I got to be the person that I had to push deep down 364 days a year otherwise. It was everything for me. Warped Tour may have been my entry point, but the truth is, the link between punk and queerness runs much deeper than one summer festival. This is a history that goes back decades, through underground bars, DIY zines, basement shows, and gender-mashed aesthetics that came long, long before they hit Hot Topic. This isn't just a highlight reel of queer artists. This is a history lesson. It's a loud, unapologetic reminder that queer people helped build punk, that we shaped it, and that we're still here screaming into the microphone.
And on this journey, one more love unraveled. I finally learned to love me for me.
Punk wasn't born on a major label. It didn't emerge from institutions. Punk was and still is a do-it-yourself, DIY rebellion. It's a fight back. It's a big middle finger to systems that silence, sanitize, or sell out. That's exactly why queerness has always been right there in the DNA of punk, even if it wasn't always spotlighted. I even heard Dave Grohl say it, that there wouldn't be rock, let alone punk, as it is today without Little Richard. His pompadour, his piano bashing performances, and explosive sexuality laid the groundwork. All while he was coded, mocked, and rewritten by white rock stars who couldn't match his fire. Then came Jayne County, both before and after transitioning, performing unapologetically with the electric chairs in the 1970s. She wasn't just performing in punk, she was punk. Loud, political, trans, and ready to punch you in the face with a mic stand if you crossed her. And then there's Darby Crash of the Germs. Queer, chaotic, and gone far too young. His sexuality was known in LA's underground, but still rarely talked about in punk's official story. Darby wasn't openly queer, though he did struggle with his sexuality. Together with George Albert Ruthenberg, a guitarist that Darby would later rename Pat Smear, that name is going to be very important later, they formed the Germs, which they officially called Sophista and the Revlon Spam Queens. Pat once said, "Whatever we were going to be the most. If we were going to be punk, then we were going to out-punk the Sex Pistols. If we were going to be the worst band ever, then we were going to be the worst band ever." Tragically, Darby Crash passed away on December 7th, 1980, at the age of 22. But his legacy would live on even to this day, as you'll hear more about Pat Smear in a bit. The mainstream wanted to clean punk up, or they wanted to pretend it didn't exist. But queer punks kept showing up anyway. In New York, in San Francisco, in garages, in bars, in riots. And then the 1980s hit, and that gave us Queercore, a cultural earthquake. Bands like Team Dresch, Tribe 8, and Pansy Division carved out space by sheer volume and stubbornness. They didn't just want to be accepted in punk. They were calling punk out for homophobia and gatekeeping that it hadn't fully shed. These bands brought queerness up front and on stage, and zines like JD's turned the subculture into a counterculture, one that said, queer punks don't need your permission to exist. At that same time, there was another movement. Riot Grrrl was erupting, another underground wave rooted in feminism, zines, and protest. Queer voices weren't just tolerated there, they were centered. Bands like Team Dresch and the Butchies made sure of that. As punk splintered into various subgenres in the early 80s, one band was unapologetically queer, campy, and radically themselves: the B-52s. With 4 of the 5 original members identifying somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum, Fred Schneider, Ricky Wilson, Keith Strickland, and Kate Pearson, the band became a beacon of offbeat, joyful rebellion, with hits like Love Shack and Rock Lobster. Through their visuals, their sound, and their presentation, they lived DIY, with a queer kick to it. That was especially hard to do in a music world that often silenced queer identity. But while this history has often been told through mostly white voices, queer punks of color were shaping the scene in vital, powerful ways. Take Debbie Smith, a black lesbian guitarist and activist who fought both racism and exclusion in punk spaces. As she said, "We weren't just there to play the game. We were there to change the game." Artists like Debbie challenged the norms, demanding that punk not only be welcoming to queerness, but also confront racism head on. Their work helped build a more intersectional punk movement, even when the broader scene tried to erase them. This isn't just history, it's a legacy of resistance that continues today. As punk continued to evolve in the late 80s and early 90s, a certain sound came out of Seattle. The raw emotion and sound broke down not just musical boundaries, it also oftentimes blurred gender lines too. A great example of this is Kurt Cobain. He challenged the macho rock star image. Sometimes he wore dresses, he kissed his bandmates on stage, and he openly rejected homophobia and sexism. He's quoted as having written, "If any of you, in any way, hate homosexuals, people of different color, or women, please do this one favor for us. Leave us the alone." This was directly lifted from the bylines of their album Incesticide, released in December of 1992. That was just months after the Rodney King riots and amid the AIDS crisis. That statement was punk as hell. And the following year, Kurt invited a 4th member to Nirvana. As I told you earlier, you'd hear the name Pat Smear once more. He became a full-time member of the band to the very end. And you can still see Pat to this very day, carrying on both the legacy of Darby and Kurt, alongside Dave Grohl and the band Foo Fighters. Speaking of the Washington sound that rocked the nation in the late 80s and early 90s, at Seattle's Museum of Pop Culture, the Nirvana exhibit includes other local bands. One in particular is Bikini Kill, pioneers of the Riot Grrrl movement. Fierce, feminist, queer inclusive, and loud. While Nirvana was taking over MTV, Bikini Kill was tearing down walls in punk's underground with zines and all ages shows. The band was active from 1990 to 1997, though they've done reunions beginning back in 2017. However, as of right now, there's no plans for any new material. Queerness and gender nonconformity were key threads weaving these scenes together. Going from the Seattle sound just down the Pacific coast came a band out of Berkeley, California called Green Day. The bridge between the raw 90s rebellion and the mainstream pop-punk explosion of the 2000s. Frontmember Billie Joe Armstrong's style, his voice, and his energy challenged rock stereotypes. In 1994, Green Day brought Pansy Division on tour with them while promoting their massively successful debut album, Dookie. And a year later, Billie Joe actually came out as bisexual in an interview with The Advocate. Minus Pat Smear's tenure with Foo Fighters, Green Day is the first band in this video that I've actually seen in person. Now, I don't like taking people's videos unless I'm reacting to them. Again, DIY is very punk virtue, but I recorded this clip myself. So here's just a taste of the energy that Billie Joe can bring to a stage. This is from their show in Green Bay, Wisconsin in 2017. Still my only time I've gotten to see them live. Still got it. Can absolutely control any size audience. In recent years, he's also embraced his identity as a bisexual icon, with songs like Bobby Socks, openly celebrating queer experiences. In the song, Billie Joe begins with the lyrics, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" Later in the song, those lyrics actually change to, "Do you want to be my boyfriend?" But it's still Billie Joe singing. From an article I've attached in the description of this video with American Songwriter, Billie Joe said, "It's the 90s song that we never wrote. It started out being a song that I wrote for my wife, but as it materialized, I wanted to switch it up and added, 'Do you want to be my boyfriend?' on top of 'Do you want to be my girlfriend?' So the song becomes a kind of universal anthem." Green Day and bands like them paved the way for more bands of a similar sound. Sum 41, Blink-182, Simple Plan, Newfound Glory, and many of these bands found their way to that one-day summer camp. The Warped Tour, a legendary punk festival that ran for 25 years, starting in 1995, and just resurrected this past weekend in Washington, D.C. It played a huge role in bringing punk, emo, and pop punk out of the nightclubs and into broad daylight. Literally, these shows would normally start at like 11 a.m. At first, Warped Tour wasn't immediately the most welcoming or inclusive space. But over time, as highlighted by an article from Galore magazine, the festival really matured. It evolved into a platform that featured openly queer artists and vocal allies, creating a space where diverse identities could be celebrated and heard. This growing openness aligned with the rise of artists like Pete Wentz of Fall Out Boy, like Brendan Urie of Panic at the Disco, and Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance, all of whom challenged traditional rock masculinity by embracing eyeliner, makeup, and androgynous styles. Gerard Way, to this day, will still sometimes wear dresses too. They revived the glam rock spirit of gender nonconformity for an entire new generation. And they weren't just playing with fashion. They were pushing back against rigid ideas about identity and masculinity in rock. My first Warped Tour experience was August 1st, 2008 in Milwaukee. Bands like Against Me, fronted by Laura Jane Grace, who later on came out as transgender, were actually on that lineup. And that same summer, a certain artist on Warped Tour saw her song climbing the charts massively, bringing visibility and queerness to the mainstream. That song was I Kissed a Girl, and the artist was Katy Perry. Warped Tour stages became a home for queer artists like Jess Bowen of the Somerset, an incredible drummer who hits the snares harder than almost any other drummer I have ever seen. Outside of the summer set, she also performs drums for artists like Tessa Violet and 303. Here's a short clip of the Somerset's song Chelsea at Sad Summerfest 2024 in Milwaukee. She's just smashing those things. It's just awesome. Another incredible artist who's no stranger to Warped Tour is Buddy Nielsen of Senses Fail, the band that I actually wear in this guitar pick. Buddy openly embraced his queer identities through his music. While he doesn't take on an official label, queerness has long been a part of Buddy's journey. Here's a short clip of Senses Fail from last year at It Wasn't a Phase Fest. He's just crushing it. And nowadays, even the bands who aren't queer use their platforms for good. This past weekend in DC, the Wonder Years used their platform to speak on trans youth, social justice, and human rights, while songs like Ally by We the Kings became an anthem for queer pride and allyship. Proof that this scene wasn't just music. It is, always was, and always will be a movement. The spirit of punk and the spirit of queerness are deeply intertwined, both born from rebellion, survival, and the refusal to be erased. From underground clubs to massive festival stages, queer voices have pushed punk to be louder, prouder, and more inclusive. But punk doesn't retire. It reinvents. And right now, there's an entire generation of artists reshaping the sound, the scene, and what queerness in music can look like. Let's shout out some of the voices carrying this torch. First up is the amazing Skatune network. Jayne, a black, non-binary ska musician who not only remixes emo and ska classics, but redefines the space altogether. Their covers and originals are joyfully queer, politically sharp, and bursting with DIY love. They're very active on TikTok, and if I'm scrolling through and catch one of their lives, I always stick around. Meet Me at the Altar, a powerhouse trio fusing pop-punk energy with messages of resilience, representation, and straight-up anthems for the next generation. Women of color leading a genre that often shut them out, that's the future I want to see. Next up is the band Sorry Mom, a band that lives at the intersection of emo, queer joy, and political angst. Their songs feel like scream-alongs for the kids who grew up never seeing themselves in the scene, until now. SHAGGO, a queer femme punk band from Brooklyn, who still has less than 1,000 followers on TikTok right now. But with their raw energy, like in their song I Wanted Fun, that certainly won't be the case for long. Their debut album Chores just dropped, and they're heading out on tour this summer. And one I very recently discovered and followed on TikTok, Rat Bath, a band from right here in my home city of Milwaukee. They're described as a band of all transgender individuals that reclaim queer-coded villains from their childhood as heroes in their storytelling and strive for visibility in the music industry. I'm definitely looking forward to checking them out live this summer. These are just a few of the names rewriting the map. The bands you don't have to dig for in a backroom zine or an indie basement anymore, but who still carry that spirit in every riff, every scream, and every stage dive. This is what happens when queerness isn't an afterthought in punk. It's the center, the engine, the whole dang reason for the noise. Queer punk isn't just alive, it's thriving, it's evolving, and it's louder than ever. As Pride Month continues, I want to highlight an organization doing incredible work for queer people in music, Queer Capita. Queer Capita is a professional networking and community organization dedicated to empowering queer professionals across the music industry. Founded in 2021 by queer leaders, the organization brings together members from over 40 music companies, including both major and indie labels, distributors, and beyond. Their mission? To build a united, visible queer workforce in music by creating impactful partnerships, opening doors for queer students and emerging professionals, and advocating for career development at every level. Through mentorship, community building, and advocacy, Queer Capita is helping shape a more inclusive and equitable industry for all. If you're in the music industry or you want to be, check them out. Link in the description. I hope you learned something today, and remember that DIY is still alive in punk and in queerness. It's your way, your life, your truth. You're incredible just as you are. Just like I got that one day of summer, you can make that every day. It's what you deserve. For this video's comment prompt, what music uplifts you? Which artists should we know about who inspire you to be your best authentic self? What songs should be on our playlist? If this video resonated with you, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share it out, and subscribe for more content. And if you want to support my channel and the rest of the work that I do, please check out my merch with some examples below. Keep an eye out for my next video where I'll be dropping some of the new designs that I've created. And check out my poetry book, Limitless, Poetry of an Aromantic and Asexual Journey. It takes you on the trail from that confused kid back in my own Warped Tour days to the anxious college years and into finding my truth as an adult. There's links in the description for where you can find your copy. Thanks for watching. Keep screaming, keep fighting, keep being loud, because this scene, this community, is yours. Remember, we watch out for each other in the pit. As punk pioneers Rancid said, if I fall back down, you're gonna help me back up again. If I fall back down, you're gonna be my friend. Let's all live by that. So be good to each other and to yourselves. I'll see you in the next one. But for now, I'll leave you with the message that Billie Joe Armstrong himself gave us in the crowd in Green Bay that night. Take it away, Billie Joe.
My people! My people! Yes. Freaks, weirdos, strangers. That's right, we gotta rebuild. We gotta rebuild. We gotta rebuild right now. And we're gonna do it. We're doing it every day. That's right. The big heart right here in Wisconsin. That's right. Be true. Be true. Be true. And don't ever let your heart die, I'll tell you that right now. That's right. Because I'll tell you one thing. We all come from a bunch of up backgrounds. But we can come together and get up together.